Hey there, welcome back to Reddit Relations, the best channel for Reddit cheating stories. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for more stories like these. Now, let's get into the video. Is it okay to assume cheating happened to make it easier to detach and move on? I have no hard evidence, but there were a lot of warning signs. I, 24-year-old male, and my wife, 23-year-old female, will most likely finalize the divorce process within the next month or two. Our relationship came to a stalemate right after Thanksgiving weekend, during which she abruptly departed, spent the night with friends of hers, one of whom I think is her AP, and then returned the next day and said she was filing for divorce. For the record, we had been dating and engaged for about 3 years at the time of the conflict, and had been married for around 7 months at the time of the argument. It took some time for me to realize that she was probably never really devoted to the marriage in the first place, but after some consideration, I realized that she was probably never truly committed to it in the first place. I just wasn't aware of some of the warning signs, and I sought to discount or ignore others on the grounds that they were irrelevant. Listed below is a sample list of the warnings I discovered in hindsight. Bolded areas are for quick reference. Around 2 weeks before the wedding, she sought to bring up the idea of polyamory with her fiancé. Her comments were met with harsh disapproval, and I reminded her that we had begun dating with the sole intention of being monogamous, and that anything else would be considered cheating. Despite her assurances that she would not impose it on me, she argued that it was not inherently bad. I ultimately ignored it as either pre-wedding nerves or real enthusiasm in the wedding. Her obsessive behavior toward people she met online, especially those who were coping with personal issues, was well known to her friends. The majority of the time, she met these people via her hobbies, which include cosplaying and writing fiction. Even after I expressed my concerns, my wife chose to engage in a variety of activities that made me feel uncomfortable. Does she desire a pet despite the fact that our apartment does not accept pets? I eventually caved in order to impress her. Would she want to get both her nose and tongue pierced at the same time? Taking away her bodily autonomy was never something I wanted to do to her, although she knew I wouldn't love it. It seemed that she was putting me to the test by repeatedly asking if I would enjoy it even though she knew I wouldn't, and then getting angry when my response wasn't entirely supportive. I didn't allow that affect my attitude toward her or my degree of affection for her, and I went out of my way to display my affection. She then went so far as to take images of herself and sell them to complete strangers on the internet, which she admitted to doing. She explained to me that it was impersonal since she wouldn't be meeting anybody in person, and that it was merely a means to supplement our money so that we could pursue our interests. In the course of our dating relationship, she joined a LARP club where she met potential AP. He is accountable for a portion of the group's daily operations. Even while she and I were engaged in other activities, they continued to talk often back and forth. I was always told it was for character development, narrative discussion, and other such purposes, but she never provided any details, and I didn't inquire since I respected her right to privacy. Potential AP breaks up a year-long engagement in October 2021, and my wife asks if we might go see him to ostensibly show our support. Because I work in the early mornings and my wife works in the nights, I quit going after the first couple of times so I can sleep enough not to suffer at work. She continues to see potential AP many evenings each week with increasing regularity, staying later and later. Generally from 12 to 3 a.m. She even came home around 5 a.m., just minutes before I had to go for work, maybe a week or two before the major battle. The argument we had was regarding the regularity with which we had together. I'd always had more motivation, but we'd already developed a very constant schedule of once every week or 2 weeks. Her stated reason for leaving me is that she refuses to compromise on, despite the fact that we had no intimacy of any type for about 2 months prior to the conflict. This dry time aligns nearly exactly with when she began seeing potential AP on her own. During our argument, I recommended marital therapy if she believes things are really that terrible, despite the fact that she had shown practically no signs of dissatisfaction before to it, other for becoming upset when I suggested during the dry time. She refused therapy almost immediately, instead frequently saying, "I don't believe we'll work out." She kept repeating it, even though I was plainly disturbed. Her parents, who lived not distant from our place, had just completed converting her bedroom to an office or something when she moved out, so she supposedly couch-hopped between acquaintances, including potential AP. Almost anything fresh I see on her Facebook or TikTok accounts, though, is from potential AP residents. She could have remained with a female friend from high school, who had even offered us as a couple an inexpensive place to stay before we decided on an apartment. But it's evident that's not where she's decided to set up shop as her main location. There are a few more things I could attempt to mention, but the list is already becoming too big. I didn't know how much of this looked until I put it together after she'd gone. When I finally linked the dots, I stopped pleading with her to reconcile, try therapy, or at the very least speed things out. Her parents purposefully choose to remain blissfully unaware of where she has been residing since she left, leading me to believe it isn't as easy as staying with a longtime high school acquaintance. The saddest aspect, in my opinion, is how out of place she feels living with potential AP, who is 10 years older than us and has a daughter 10 years younger than us who sometimes visits him. I still don't have any hard evidence that there was any cheating. It seems apparent at this time, but she had me persuaded for almost a month that it was all my fault she left. I've now chosen to simply assume she's been cheating, and it's made it a lot easier to think about moving on and being less broken up over our past relationship. However, I have had reservations about my decision, since I'm condemning her in my thoughts without knowing the whole facts. Is it an appropriate decision to continue assuming she has been cheating, given all of the indicators pointing in that direction and the emotional relief it offers me, or is it wrong to reach such major conclusions without being completely certain? Has anybody else used this strategy when their ex-spouse refused to come clean? Story 2. Just found out my 36 male wife, 36 female, has been cheating. I'm a confused bundle of emotions. However, despite the fact that my heart is racing ceaselessly, I am unable to shed a tear. In any case, not for the time being. My instincts were true. I wasn't mad or merely a horrible, neurotic spouse with low self-esteem, as I had previously believed. I couldn't take it any longer, so I did what I'd wanted to do so many times before, but had been afraid to do out of respect for her. I stooped around on her phone and recorded everything she said. After a while, I saw that they were sharing nudity and planning when and where to meet. Several months have passed, and it has been about a year since this began. What is her justification? She seems to be under a great deal of stress as a